Okay, today I want to talk about the law. And what we've been talking about is basically a change of the law, and how, because of what the Messiah did when he sacrificed himself, because it was a sacrifice, and he sacrificed himself acting as a priest, acting as the high priest. He sacrificed himself. It was a change when that happened. It was signifying a change of what God had divinely ordained as a change. It was a change of the error. It was a change of a covenant. It was a change of all of these things that we know happen today for us believers. And so what I'm going to try to emphasize today is that there was a law that was enacted, and this law was definitely in effect. And actually, all of the laws of God and all of the ordinances and all of the orders that God sets in place actually are internal. Not internal, but eternal, meaning that they were from the beginning and they'll be into the end. But their effective office, let's say, or their effective term, or their dynasty, however you want to explain these laws that are set into place by God divinely, come to an end, meaning that in order for the new to come in, the old must be gone away with. Not that it's ever gone away with. And if this doesn't make sense or it sounds foolish to you, this is exactly what the scripture is saying. Okay, because just to jump right into it, the law of Moses never was the law of Moses was never flawed, right? It didn't have anything wrong with it. Okay, it was just never implemented to do certain things that later was revealed. Okay, so what I'm saying is that the law of Moses was never intended to make a believer righteous. Never was it intended for that. Okay, and later we see that God revealed his righteousness. God revealed his righteousness, and he revealed his righteousness in humans, and it was separate and apart from the law. And that is a quote from Romans. Okay, his righteousness is revealed apart from the law, so of Moses. Okay, but because it is revealed, and God did decide in his processions, or his order of things, to reveal righteousness in humans, and he did that through his son, who is actually the King of righteousness. Okay, and so when his son became officially the King of righteousness, this was also coinciding with him becoming the great high priest. Okay, because this is one of the offices that the Messiah holds, that the Christ holds, the anointed holds over the dominion of the earth. Okay, he is the King of righteousness. All right, and what I'm saying is that now this office of him being the King of righteousness is in effect. It's in effect. Okay, and it's been revealed that the law, though it was not faulted, had no faults in it, it just did not reveal righteousness in humans. As a matter of fact, it revealed the lack of righteousness in humans. That's what the law did. It exposed our unrighteousness. The law exposed our sin, let's say. Okay, and that's what it was actually ultimately intended to do. Now, although the law itself was holy, the law of Moses, again, it was holy. It was not an instruction manual to produce righteousness. And this is where people get confused, because there's one standard of this that he produced that revealed what righteousness was, and that was the law of Moses, not to be taken away from or adapted or amended or any of those things. This was it. Okay, and because now we have to amend the law, meaning that only a descendant of Levi was permitted to touch, be around, service, work on, sacrifice, anything that God required in the more internal holy things of God, set apart things of God, that whole area where only the Levites could go, and then the specific area where only certain Levite families could go, and then only certain areas where only Aaron could go. certain areas where only Aaron and his sons could go, and then certain areas where only Aaron could go, and certain areas where only Aaron could go one time a year. Okay, all of these things. You're telling me that changed because Christ was the sacrificial lamb, but everything else is still intact. But my rebuttal is that Christ was the sacrificial lamb. Yes, he was this sacrifice. Okay, but my rebuttal is he's also the sacrificer, which nobody would disagree with, because it says plain as day, he is the great high priest. But here's the disagreement, is the fact that because he is the great high priest, and because he is this to God, he is a priest of God, the order or the law has been changed. Not that it was ineffective. It was just that it was effective to do what it was designed to do, which was to reveal the sin of humans, to reveal why we were unable to be righteous. And it was also to reveal the need for us to have the righteous one, which is now the King of righteousness, because he didn't leave us in a void. He didn't leave us in a void. Okay, he said, look at this standard of righteousness that you can't do. They didn't do it, and it's not that their effort was awarded to them. Okay, it says your faith is righteousness, and it's revealed faith by faith. This is the scripture. This is what the scripture says. It's your faith that is accredited to you as righteousness. That's what the law couldn't accredit to you, because it's not a thing of righteousness. It's a thing of ritual, and it's a thing of consistency, and it's a thing of now you can do the law because you know it's from God and see the goodness in it, and you can do it faithfully to him. But that in itself does not make you righteous. It's the fact that you're doing it in faithfulness to him. And I hope this makes sense, and I trust that it makes sense, because this is what I'm seeking to explain to the people. Now, and God did decide in his processions, or his order of things, to reveal righteousness in humans, and he did that through his son, who is to him. But that in itself does not make you righteous. It's the fact that you're doing it in faithfulness to him. And I hope this makes sense, and I trust that it makes sense, because this is what I'm seeking to explain to the people. Now, Hebrews 7:11. If perfection could have been attained through the Levitical priesthood, why was there still another need for a priest to come? Another priest to come. One in the order of Melchizedek, not in the order of Aaron. For when the priesthood is changed, the law must be changed too, or the law must have changed too, because the priests serve under the law, or a law, or a order, including the great high priest. Now, what is this law that the great high priest, Yahusha, or however you would pronounce it? I'm not even mad if you say Jesus, honestly, and I know that's Zeus or whatever. Okay, but I'm just going to emphasize the fact that this point is, what is the law that the great high priest, the Holy One of God, serves under? If there was indeed, as the scripture just plainly said to us, has changed, and there's a new law, obviously. So what is it? Galatians 6:2, and this is from the KJV. Galatians 6:2. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. 1 Corinthians 9:21. To them that are without the law, as without the law, being not without the law to God, but under the law to Christ. But under the law to Christ, that one might gain them that are without law. You see, we serve like the priest of old, according to the order or law God has set. This new law, this new covenant, this new testament, this new life, this new creature law that has been revealed. Not that it's okay, you guys got to understand that this is not new. There's nothing new under the sun. It just hasn't been revealed, even though it was in place and building up to and in production. If God says it, it's good. If God says it, it's as good as done, no matter how long it takes. All right, this is what he planned to do, and under this law, and it's not finished yet. This is still things to be revealed. As I said in the previous lessons, that this great high priest has a dual office, because he's the king of righteousness, as Melchizedek, which means king of righteousness. But he's also the king of peace, and king of Salem, which is a separate destination, if we will, a separate tick on the timeline, a different thing to come, yet to come. But as of now, he's the king of righteousness, and he's the great high priest serving under the law of love. Okay, the law of Christ, the law of Christ. Okay. God's law was perfect in the fact that it revealed what was perfect. But in doing that, it also revealed what was not perfect, which was us human beings. Okay. This is the law of Christ. Today's God law is for the world, and more specifically, the believers, to receive his love in the embodiment of the Anointed One. This is the law of Christ. This is the law of the Anointed One, the law of love. Romans 13:8. The order or law God has set. This new law, this new covenant, this new testament, this new life, this new creature law that has been revealed. Not that it's okay, you guys got to understand that this is not new. There's nothing new under the sun. It just hasn't been revealed. Even though it was in place and building up to and in production, if God says it, it's good. If God says it, it's as good as done, no matter how long it takes. All right? This is what he planned to do. And under this law, and it's not finished yet. This is still things to be revealed. As I said in the previous lessons, that this great high priest has a dual office because he's the king of righteousness, as Melchizedek, which means. And this is from the NIV, Romans 13:8. Let no debt remain outstanding, except continuing debt to love one another. For whosoever loves others has fulfilled the law. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. 13:9. The commandments: you shall not adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and whatever other command there may be are summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does not harm a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. Again, this is the law of Christ. And see, there's unity between the Son and the Father. Okay, it's symbiotic. It's one. It flows, right? Between God and the Son, between the Father and the Son, I should say. And my point is being that the law of God does not rub out the law of Christ, and the law of Christ does not rub out the law of God, but instead they harmoniously fulfill and directly interact with each other. You see, because what's really impressed upon my heart is this fact that, okay, when you love your neighbor as yourself, you're fulfilling the law of the Anointed One, which in all actuality is fulfilling the law of Elohim, the Father. Right? They're one and the same, but it's just revealed in more depth over time. Okay? Listen to this part. Verse 11, Romans 13:11. And in doing this, love does no harm to his neighbor. That's verse 10. Romans 13:10. Love does no harm to his neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. See? Love is the law of the Anointed One, the Christ. That's the law of the Christ, love. But love is also what the Mosaic law and the law of God was trying to demonstrate. And it did, but it just demonstrated it in the perfection of the Christ, the Messiah who came and was the embodiment and the fulfillment of that. Now that occurred, we have access, okay, to do the same thing, fulfill the law. And as a matter of fact, it's required that in doing this, it's an act of service. Okay, when you're fulfilling the law that we're under now, in this current time, in this new covenant, this law that we're under in the new covenant, we're fulfilling the law of Christ, or the law of the Anointed One, which is love, which is the fulfillment of the law of the past. And doing this, understanding the present time, that's verse 13:11, Romans 13:11. Understanding the present time, the hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer now. It's nearer now than when we first believed. Our salvation. And salvation comes in pretty much 3 phases for us as believers on the Most High. And it's when you first initially believe him, it's on a day-to-day basis, and it's in this time that's even nearer now. Okay? And this is going to happen. Christ is the fulfillment of, okay, the law of Christ, and specifically Christ, the Messiah, the sacrificial lamb, let's say, the Son of God, who was embodied in humanity, who was sacrificed, who sacrificed himself as a sacrifice, who offered himself in a very spiritual, he offered himself in a very spiritual and a very priestly, honorable way. Okay. When he did that, it was a priestly way. He was enacting his office as a priest, and the great high priest, who's the only one that could do it. That was symbolized by Aaron being the only one who can go beyond that curtain. Okay. Just as Christ was the only one who could go and do the sacrifice that he performed when he did that on the sticks, on the tree. Okay. Romans 10:4. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness. Do we understand this? Okay. For Christ is the fulfillment, the culmination of the law for righteousness to everyone that believes. Or as it's stated in another version, Christ is the culmination of the law, so that there may be righteousness for everyone who believes. Okay. The end in the King James Version means that by which a thing is finished. It's closed. Issue, the end to which all things relate. It means the aim or the purpose. So Christ is the purpose of the law to everyone that believes. Okay. Do we realize that when the Christ did what he did and it said he tore that curtain in half to the holy place. Not only symbolically in real life did it happen when he perished on the cross, or died on the cross, I should say, and that the temple curtain was ripped in half because it tore that down. Not only was that the wall of perdition between the Gentiles and the house of Yeshurel, that was also the gap between believers who had become and entered into the priesthood, the new priesthood. Because once you became a believer, you entered into a new priesthood. Thus far, now you are able to go beyond where the curtain was and go directly to the throne of grace and partition God for whatever your needs are according to his will, according to the purpose of his will. Isn't that amazing? But that's what we need to do right now. Okay. Everything's in a function. Like it's a working under the premises, okay, of this law, this order of things. The way things are working out for us is because we're agents for God for this purpose, to love your neighbor and to love and to understand that in this present time, that's what we're here for, because it's the time where he comes near. And see, when you say that, it's a general thing. It's not isolated to the regiments as of the law of old. That was only regiments. It didn't reveal yet what these regiments were trying to show you. And now it has been revealed to us by faith. It has been revealed to us by faith. And that's why we're here. To continue on with this king of Salem. Why do you think it is Melchizedek, who was introduced to us as the king of righteousness, he was away from his kingdom of peace? Again, that's because we serve under righteousness right now, under the law of love, or under the anointed one's law of love, or the Christ law. Okay, because the law of God, or the law of Moses, is completed. It's no longer active. It has been done. Okay, not done away with, but completed. Its purpose has been fulfilled, right? As the scripture says, its purpose. Christ was the purpose of the law of Moses. Therefore, we are now under this law of Christ, which is enacted in order that we produce righteousness. Okay, because that's what the king of righteousness is. Okay, the king of righteousness is the king of the Most High, right? Obviously, but he was stated as being the priest of the Most High. Okay, the king of righteousness and the king of peace. He is the priest. Okay, so God's king is a priest, and God's priest, high priest, is a king. And as a matter of fact, all the priests of God are kings, because we read in the scripture in Zechariah, there's an excerpt in Zechariah 6:9-15 where it explains this. Okay, those who have came out of the confusion of the world came and took the gold and silver, the divine things of God. The gold and silver also represents stuff. This is Zechariah 6:9. And what we're talking about is the prophecy of what's taking place right now in this time period. In this time where we, like Paul says in Romans 13:10, in our 13:11, understanding this present time. Well, what's happening at this present time? All the things and all the current events and of the world and all of the revelations of the world and what's happening in the world is not revealing what's happening in those who believe and what's happening to the spiritual beings. The spiritual beings. It doesn't appear to your sight what's happening within the heirs of promise, because his promises are spiritual. Okay? Again, there's earthy. There's things that are bound to the elements and regiments and the requirements of the earth. And then there's also things that are designed and built to the standard and the glory and the splendor of the spiritual in God, in the Most High, in his Son. And that's what you and I are building. We must stay focused. We must endure. We must. Together, with one voice, with one spirit, with one energy, go forward and produce what it is that we were destined by birth. And again, not a human birth. You understand what I'm saying? We are building a dwelling place for God, which he is dwelling in now as it's constructed. But when the construction is done, oh my. Think about when the construction was done for the temple that Solomon did. Oh, the world never seen it before. The splendor, the glory of what was built. You and I are being built, not with the hands of men, mind you. Read Ephesians 2:11-22. Read where it says not built with the hands of man. Google that. And this is what I'm trying to emphasize to you. That's what law we're under. That's what we're producing. That's where we're sacrificing. That's where we're taking our offerings unto God for. That's where we're lifting up the other petitions of our brothers and sisters. That's where we're helping each other out. That's where we're doing what we do for each other. United in one to produce this. And I'm telling you, eye hasn't seen, nor ear heard this, what God is producing in those that love him, because there's no way you can love him and not love his people. Make no mistake about it. You cannot love him and not love his people. His people. And that's clear to me. That's the mark that you know that somebody has actually the love of the Most High in them, because they love one another. I can't love so much. It's not going to be evident. The one who is not of me, who kicks me down, who oppresses me, who's not me. We're not the same blood. I don't see that. And if we're brothers by blood. The one that shed blood, circumcised with spiritual circumcision. God said to my master, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. God sends your mighty scepter out, a Tyson, rule in the midst of your enemies. Your people volunteer in the day of your might, in the splendor of set apartness. From the womb, from the morning, you have the dew of your youth. The Most High has sworn and does not relent. You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. The Almighty at your right hand shall smite the sovereigns in the day of his wrath. He judges among the nations. He shall fill the nations with dead bodies. He shall crush the head over the earth. But he has sworn and not relented. This is a call for all of the believers right here. He has sworn and has not relented. You are a priest forever. You are. In the law, in the order of Melchizedek, who is the king of righteousness and the king of peace. And yes, he will bring peace. He's going to bring peace. And you know what that means for this world. I know. He's going to set something straight. It's not going to be pretty. He's going to set it straight, though. Yep. But that's a priest again. That's a priest that does this. The great high priest, the greatest priest of all. Don't you think that there's false prophets, there's false priests? But we're talking about the great high priest who operates under the oath, under the ordinance, under the order, under the law of love in righteousness, which he is also the king of. That's my time for today. Let it be a blessing as it was for me. And we give what we have received. Let it be a blessing again.